Hello and welcome to this guide to the EDUQAS English Language Paper 1, Section A, Question 3. This question will ask then, how does the writer? Why does the examiner mention the writer? Well, it hints they want you to look at hidden meaning or purpose behind the writing and why a character was written or character or situation was written in the way that they were. This is how the question would look then. It will give you a certain number of lines to look at. Then it will ask, how does the writer? And then it will give you a bullet point reminding you exactly what you're being assessed for. Here is an example then of a question 3. The key information the exam will give you are now in red. Once again, it gives you a certain number of lines to read. And in this case, it's quite a large number of lines, 18 to 65. Which means then there's going to be plenty of different qualities to talk about regarding the relationship between Jonathan and Francis. You can see here the wording suggests the exam board looking for writer's craft and the examiner wanting you to comment on effects created. You can see the question is worth 10 marks. This is the highest number of marks available from at this point in the test, being question 3. The other two questions, question 1 and 2, worth a lot less marks than this one, which means you should make about 10 different points or use 10 different quotes in your response. This exam question then should take about 15 minutes to write. And lastly, you can see there, just there, you can see a reference to subject terminology, which means you should try your best to use words like noun, verb, adjective in your response. As a general rule, you want to write your answers in short PEE paragraphs that link to the question and make clear what a quote suggests about a character or characters. Key advice to pass this section: be careful to make sure you use enough quotes for the marks awarded. Don't waste time trying to find subject terminology. Here's an example then, taken from, I think this is Amber Spyglass maybe? Northern Lights. And the question is asking, how does the writer show the effect Miss Coulter has on others? She stopped very suddenly because Miss Coulter herself had appeared close by. You can see the main character is obviously quite scared or shaken by Miss Coulter based on the stopped very suddenly. From the way Adele Starmonster looked up at her and the agitated way her demon was fluttering around her head, Lyra could tell that the young woman wasn't supposed to be at the party at all. "I don't know your name," said Miss Coulter very quietly. The adverb quietly here might suggest that she's sly or devious or deliberately someone who cannot be trusted. "But I shall find it out within 5 minutes, and then you'll never work as a journalist again." The "you will never work as a journalist again" implies then Miss Coulter is someone who uses threats to get what she wants. She appears to be a dangerous woman who deliberately threatens others to get what she desires. Now get up very quietly without making a fuss and leave. I might add that whoever bought this here will also suffer. Suggests to us then Miss Coulter is someone who delights in the pain and punishment of others and is not above doing this to get what she wants. We've then got the paragraph 3 there, where Miss Coulter seems to be charged with some kinds of anabic force. Now, with a word like anabic, the exam board will often put a star next to it and give you a definition underneath. So if you look at the bottom there, it says anabic means electrical or electric. So it seems she's charged with an electrical force. This suggests then this is a very powerful woman who should not be challenged, someone who can be dangerous, in fact deadly, and someone then potentially to stay well clear of. You can see what I did there was read through parts of the extract, get a general understanding of what the character was like, and then select words or phrases or language to then comment on, linking to her personality and how she might affect other people. This is the mark scheme for this question then. You can see it goes from 0 marks for nothing worthy of credit, all the way up to 9 or 10 marks for detailed analysis. Well, as soon as the word analysis is used, you can see that goes into the higher levels. Analysis means to zoom in on particular details. So you might want to choose a quote and then zoom in on one word from that quote to comment on in more depth. If you were to do this, let's say twice in your response, this is likely then to get you 7 or 8 marks or perhaps better. We're now going to look at 3 examples then, taken from the question you saw earlier in the recent mock exam, based around Jonathan and Francis's relationship. This is the exam text itself then. As you can see, for question 3, because you've got to find 10 pieces of evidence, it's actually a lot longer extract for this question, which as we read, you should be looking for different words or phrases then that show their relationship. They finally set off to visit the cottage where the writer Thomas Hardy was born. When they arrived, Jonathan paid the keeper of Hardy's cottage. "Right, you can go on through, but keep the children under control, won't you?" said the keeper. They moved to the low-ceiling rooms, whispering to impress the importance of good behaviour on Lorna. "This is the room where he was born," said Jonathan, at the head of the stairs. "The doctor thought he was dead and tried to look after the mother, but the midwife noticed the baby was breathing." "And Hardy carried on till he was 87, said Francis. "Don't talk," shouted Lorna. "Don't shout," replied Jonathan. Lorna fixed him with a calculating blue eye and produced an ear-splitting scream. The baby jerked his arms and started to howl. "Hardy didn't have any children, did he?" said Jonathan above the din. "I'll take them outside. I've seen enough. You stay here a bit longer if you want to." Francis stood alone in the silence of the empty room and moved around the furniture, thinking what it'd be like in a convent, a blessed place where everything was in silence. Jonathan was sitting outside with the baby on his lap in a row of flowers, reading to Lorna in a newly acquired book. Then he saw Francis approaching. He said, "Look, I bought one of Hardy's novels to read when I get a spare moment." "Spare moment," said Francis. "But how lovely you look with the children at your knees and the flowers round the cottage door. How I would like to be the one coming back from work to find you with the children all bathed and a hot meal in the oven. I could unwind with a glass of beer in the garden." "I don't get that when I get home," Jonathan reminded her. "That's because I'm not organised enough yet," said Francis. "But still, I wish it could be the other way round, or at least share things half and half. And I was also thinking, what a cheesy thing English literature is, all those old men telling lies about love and life. Life isn't like that, is it?" By the time they reached the rented cottage, they were exhausted. Jonathan watched Frances collapse into a chair with the children all over her. Before babies, they'd been well matched. Then, with the arrival of their first child, she felt as if she were drowning. He'd watched, ineffectual but sympathetic, trying to keep her cheerful as she tried to cope. Just then, they'd grown used to this state. They were then managing to feel normal again. Along came the second baby, like a wave that overwhelmed her altogether. "I'm shattered," she said. "I'm never alone. Always get to be there for the children. I even have to feed the cat." "I take them out for a walk on Sunday afternoons," he protested. "But it's like a favour, and it's only for a couple of hours. For pity's sake, I'm tired too." "Sorry," she muttered. "Sorry, but I don't feel like me anymore." "You're too close to them," murmured Jonathan. "You should cut off from them a bit. Give yourself some space." "How can I?" sniffed Francis. "Someone's got to be devoted to them, and it's not going to be you because you're always at work." "It's not easy for me either." "I know it isn't," she replied, "but at least you're allowed to be yourself. I'm not allowed to be myself anymore." He reached out his hand and they fell into each other's arms and hugged tightly. Candidate 1 then, as you can see, quotes in red and technical language in blue. 6 out of 10 for this response. Lots of evidence used here that's mostly well developed with clear subject knowledge used. Evidence of beginning to analyse, but it's not quite convincing as specific words are not really explored. So this candidate has zoomed in on the word watching, but hasn't really explained what that word implies about Jonathan and Francis' relationship. You can see there then a full 6 out of 10 or pass mark from this response. The number of quotes, good detail of explanation there, but needs a bit more considered analysis to get the higher marks. Candidate 2, as you can see, has used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quotes in total for a 10-mark question, but you can see how limited the explanations are for those quotes. Ideas here are simplistic and quotes are not really explained, which means then they would not go any higher than 3 out of 10. They have used technical language with the word alliteration, but there isn't enough really to show they understood Jonathan and Francis' relationship in depth from the extract they were given. And candidate 3, some strong quotes used here with clear focus on the task and exploration. Sometimes punctuation is even studied for effect. So you can see if you read that line there, you can see I've analysed the fact that there's an exclamation mark after spare moment. clearly demonstrating or explain then what that tells you about their relationship. There's clear analysis of the word organised there from the longer quotes. That's because I'm not organised enough yet, linking back to the question set. Technical language that isn't forced. They notice there is a rhetorical question and so happen to comment on it. Clear tracking of the extract and how the effects of the reader on the reader changed throughout. And there you go then, 9 out of 10 for that response. Lots of quotes. Quite short explanations, which is fine given the time limit, and technical language there being used in a way that shows that they understand why that technique might have been used in the first place. Each year, the school gets sent feedback from the exam board regarding the last actual exam. This is the feedback then for question 3. Too many candidates go on a technique hunt for this question. It is far more important to show you understand what happens in the extract. And the best responses will show the writer creates different sides to a character, giving clear evidence how this different personality traits are shown at different times through the whole extract. The character or situation you're asked about in the exam will change subtly through the extract you're given, and it's up to you to spot those different sides to that character or situation. As you're probably aware then, I've taught this exam quite a few times now, and this is what I've noticed about students' work. All too often, students complain they can't find subject terminology in the extract. Don't try too hard for this in the exam. If you find it accidentally, then great. For example, a rhetorical question, short sentence or simile are easy to find and comment on without really looking too hard for them. The more important issue is probably timings. 50 minutes to gain as many of the 10 marks as possible. Some students spend too long and don't have time for the rest of the exam paper, while others don't use enough evidence or make enough points to actually pass the test. Help keep track of doing your 10 quotes by putting 10 ticks or marks down the side of the page and cross them off as you write each PE paragraph. Then you know when you've got your 10 because you've ticked off all your marks. Takes seconds to do, or milliseconds even to do, but it's worthwhile to make sure you can quickly move on to question 4. This then is a response based on the advice I've just spoken through. You can see, to get top marks, some care must be taken to use the most accurate language possible. I've kept quotes as short as possible to save time. And I've emphasised how the relationship or character changes, just to show that I've got a range of responses or in-depth knowledge then of the character or situation. So, exclamation mark is the only piece of technical language used here because I just happened to notice that one of my quotes used that. So I didn't look too hard for the technical language in this case. You can see it's not a full response, but this gives you an idea of how to actually write it. I've spent a bit of time here thinking, or as much time as I'm able to, thinking about the wording used here to make sure it's as accurate to the quotes as I possibly can. For example, don't shout is his retort, which emphasises how fragile the relationship is. I could easily have said, don't shout shows Jonathan is shouting, which shows he's angered by Francis. Well, that wouldn't be quite accurate, so I've thought about my wording to show that I fully understand exactly what's going on in their relationship at this point in the text. Here then are 2 practice questions to work on using the advice you've just been given. Practice question 1 and practice question 2. Thank you very much then for listening to this guide to Language Paper 1, Section A, Question 3. Good luck in the final exam.